In the summer of 2014, Gaza became a battleground. Cities, homes, and lives were torn apart in what would become one of the deadliest conflicts between Israel and Hamas. But how did it all begin? And what were the consequences for the people caught in the middle? Let's take a step back and explore the causes and consequences of the 2014 Gaza War. To understand the war, we need to first understand the context. Gaza, a narrow strip of land along the Mediterranean coast, has long been at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But in 2014, the tensions that had been building for years reached a boiling point. The roots of the Gaza conflict go deep, stretching back to the early 20th century, as both Israelis and Palestinians fought for land, independence, and recognition. By 1948, when Israel was founded, Gaza became home to many Palestinian refugees displaced by the new state. Over the years, the region saw a series of escalating tensions, with intermittent peace talks and ceasefires, but peace seemed always just out of reach. By 2007, after a violent split between Palestinian factions, Gaza fell under the control of Hamas, an Islamist militant group that would come to represent the hopes and frustrations of many Palestinians, but also fuel much of the animosity in the region. For Israel, Hamas posed a serious security threat, launching rockets into Israeli towns and cities. But as years passed, the situation in Gaza only became more dire. Blockades, poverty, and a lack of basic resources left many living in a constant state of uncertainty. Then in June 2014, tensions reached a dangerous new level. 3 Israeli teenagers were kidnapped and killed in the West Bank, allegedly by Hamas members. This act would spark a series of retaliatory actions that would lead to full-scale war. The Israeli government responded with airstrikes and a military operation aimed at dismantling Hamas and stopping the rocket fire from Gaza. But what started as a reaction to an atrocity quickly escalated into something much more devastating. As Israel's Operation Protective Edge began, Gaza's civilian infrastructure took a heavy toll. Airstrikes, artillery shelling, and ground operations devastated homes, hospitals, schools, and UN shelters. Thousands of lives were lost, most of them Palestinian civilians. The images of destroyed buildings and the suffering of innocent people became symbols of the war, sparking outrage around the world. The war sparked massive protests worldwide as people called for an end to the violence and for international intervention. Governments and organizations were torn, with some supporting Israel's right to defend itself and others condemning its actions in Gaza. The international community was divided, and the consequences of the war would not only affect Gaza and Israel, but also set the stage for future political shifts in the region. The human cost of the 2014 Gaza war was catastrophic. Over 2,200 Palestinians were killed and thousands more were wounded or displaced. Families were torn apart, and the already fragile healthcare system in Gaza struggled to cope with the scale of the destruction. Children lost their homes, their schools, and for many, their futures. The psychological scars left by the war would haunt generations to come. Economically, Gaza was brought to its knees. The war exacerbated an already dire situation. Infrastructure was crippled, businesses were destroyed, and the region faced an even greater blockade. It wasn't just the physical damage. The war intensified Gaza's isolation from the world, creating a humanitarian crisis that continues to this day. Politically, the war deepened the rift between Israel and Hamas, and the prospects for peace seemed even more remote. For Hamas, the war was seen as a struggle for survival, while Israel's government viewed it as a necessary step to protect its citizens from ongoing threats. Despite this, neither side emerged with a clear victory. The war only solidified the divisions within Palestinian politics and further entrenched the occupation in Gaza. In the wake of the war, humanitarian organizations rushed to provide aid, and rebuilding efforts slowly began. International support and donations have helped to reconstruct some of the physical damage, but much remains to be done. Gaza's future remains uncertain, with a political stalemate that leaves its people caught in the middle of a larger conflict that has gone on for decades. The 2014 Gaza War left deep scars, but it also highlighted the resilience of the people of Gaza. Despite the suffering, they continue to rebuild their lives and hope for a future of peace and stability. For the international community, it was a stark reminder that in a conflict like this, there are no easy solutions, only hard choices and the enduring hope for a better tomorrow. The 2014 Gaza War may have ended, but its impact continues to shape the region today. To stay informed on global conflicts and their lasting consequences, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. History is far from over. It's unfolding right before our eyes.